Thank you, Sharon, and this welcoming of the angels, these ministering angels that come and join us this evening. It's an honor to be here. I am Rabbi Eve Posen. I am the Associate Rabbi of Congregation Neve Shalom. And standing here is, I don't even know that I have a word to describe it. Because in my mind, thinking about this moment only takes me back to 2020, to the midst of the COVID pandemic, to an idea I had, how can we gather together as a community and learn? Well, obviously, the Torah was there. There was Zoom. Maybe people have a lunch hour. We could do something with it. And so I said, oh, I'll do weekly Torah study on Zoom. And someone said to me, I think it may have been Mel Berwin, our director of congregational learning, that's cute, but like, what are we gonna get out of it? People may not just wanna come to learn. What are we gonna do? And so became this class with this idea that we would study the weekly Torah portion. And each week, everyone who participated would be invited in some way, shape, or form that worked for them to reflect on that Torah portion, the words of the Torah that week, which was beautiful because as a rabbi, I do that all the time. It would be wonderful to hear other people doing that. So we started the learning, and Brian Rohr participated with about a dozen other congregants, meeting every Monday in those dark days. We studied the Torah. And each week, Brian started to show up with a poem, a reflection, a poem of reflection on the weekly Torah portion. He was the only one other than me who completed the task of doing something. each week with the Parsha. We are now, as a Jewish community, in this moment of almost completing the reading again. And we read shortly in our weekly reading, "And now write for yourselves this song, and teach it to the children of Israel." We read this commandment in Deuteronomy that tells us in interpretation that every Jew must write a Torah in their lifetime. And in this moment, we gather together with Brian Rohr, a poet and performative storyteller, the founder and director of the Stafford Challenge, an international poetry project inspiring over 1,000 participants to write a poem every day for a year, influenced by the legendary poet William Stafford, to see the Torah that he has written. This Torah that comes based on the understanding that the Torah was divinely inspired for human interpretation, beginning with Moshe, through the rabbis, and even to our own days. We are here tonight to celebrate the writing of a Torah. This beautiful composition of poetry, of reflection, of interpretation that is shaken to my bones. A poetic midrash on the Torah, a part of Ben Yehuda Press as their Jewish Poetry Project series. Not every Torah is written by hand with a quill. The story of our people wasn't written that easily. It was there, and then we tell it again, and each time there's a change, a moment of reflection. We see that in this incredible volume, the Torah that Brian wrote, this place that we come together to celebrate the beauty of interpretation, the beauty of a soul connected to Torah, and the ways in which our Torah, our story, continues to change and be retold from generation to generation. It is my honor and my pleasure to introduce Brian Rohr.
Calling Yaakov. My father's uncle stood before me. His smile distant, gentle, yes, though far away, like seeing, not seeing through thick gray clouds, a barrier of weather between me and my ancestors. We share a sacred name, he and I, forged in the tongue of the ancient ones, bestowed upon he, father of 13, father of nations, a heel of a man, the stories say. Oh, what did I inherit? I never knew him, Yaakov. He died young, yet steadies my footsteps when I am called to approach the scroll. Curious, open, even disturbed, hungry for meaning, hungry for roots. We become I, uncle, ancestor, merge into letters and sound, trust in those who believe names have meaning, words have power, intention. All together, we dive headfirst into a stream of answers and questions, undulating in a dance, reaching for a glimpse of the divine. I could be here forever, I am in a room with a book. I am beside the Pacific Sea. I am in a forest gathering fir cones. I am studying the magnificence of creation. I am here with my ancestors, ready. Le'asok b'divrei Torah. Thank you, Sharon. Welcome, everyone. It is so good to see you. It is so good to be here. It has been a long time coming. You know, some projects, they happen kind of quickly, right? You have an idea, you do a project, boom, here you are, it happens. Others take time. This one, as you heard before, took quite a bit of time. It has been almost 4 years since I wrote the very first poems that went into this collection. 4 years. Here's the book. And as Rabbi Posen had alluded to, things were different back then. You know, it's kind of hard to remember, at least it is for me, what it was like in October of 2020. We had just finished the very first, maybe ever, virtual High Holy Days. Now it seems like, oh, that was the thing we did. Back then, it was very strange. It was very weird. We were kind of making it up as we went along. We didn't know if it was safe to be outside, if it was safe to be amongst friends, right? It was kind of different, and it was hard. And it was in the midst of that time that this project came forth. Now, the poems that are in this book, I wrote a poem every week for each of the weekly parshiot, for each of the weekly Torah portions. And there's a lot of different voices in here, and you'll hear it. And not all of them speak about, actually very few speak about what it was like during the pandemic. But this one does. My longing. Blue and red birds appear in my birch tree. Squirrels run as I close the door. They are charming, not my kin. Truth is, I rarely welcome these days. I long to open my tent like Abraham, the ancient one, gather a choice kid, cook for a guest, offering up the most perfect grains, fill the belly and heart, share music, truth. I long for eyes and mouths, words spun around the galaxy of a room, breathing the breath of a friend. I long to dream wildly of angels bearing news, of cousins bearing news. Years ago, in the before times, loved ones on the couch or standing in the kitchen told of pregnancy, of laughter, of unbelievable events. What is your message today, I hope to ask? What bit of wisdom do you bring? Between the stories of celebration and pain, the holding of space, the counting of stars, even between the longing, the answer, as always, will be revealed. So I'll just say this for a second as a little aside. Sometimes it's an interesting thing. What do you do at a poetry reading, right? Do you clap? Do you applause? Do you kind of stay silent? I once did a poetry reading a long time ago where everyone was silent, and as a performing storyteller, I was confused. And I was like, what is going on? And I kind of got a little annoyed, and my teacher said, oh, they consider it like prayer. I was like, oh, right, you want applause. But the wonderful Emmett Wheatfall back there also likes to tell audiences, if you want to respond, you can snap. You know, it's not quite an applause, right? But it's a snap. It kind of shows a little something. So thank you, Emmett, for that teaching. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of different voices in this. Sometimes I speak from the I, Brian, like that last poem. Other times I speak in the voice of a character, or sometimes I speak in the voice of a narrator. And as I'm reading, you'll hear kind of these different voices throughout. This one is called "The Darkness of the World Asks So Much from Us." It is solstice, and warmth is a distant memory, like fresh plums picked from the neighbor's tree. This is the time when the sun stands still, and the darkness of the world asks so much from us. Slow down, remember, feel, and reflect. A time to honor the newly deceased, to remember our ancient ancestors. A time for forgiveness, a time for prayer. Forgiveness. I think of the stories of our people, like when 10 brothers bowed low, asking for survival from the one they left for dead. Oh, when they were recognized, how the flood of hurt came back, how the piercing of the veil of the past mingled with the truths of the present. Those dreams remembered are deep now, deeper than the pit he was offered to, like an unloved animal, wounded in the heart. And where the forgotten one now stands, with the power to save nations, will he be able to touch the 17-year-old of his past, say to him on the darkest day of the year, today is the day we forgive. Today is the day we forgive. And in doing so, for family and the world, call back the light. Thank you. Some of these maybe beforehand I'll explain a little bit of what's happening to explain the poem, but others might make they might make sense. You might know where they're from, or at least they work on their own. I'm going to do another. This one is called "I Am Joseph." There are ways God speaks to me. I can see it in my dreams and in the patterns of my life. Like surrendering to some great river whose destination is unknown, my feet and eyes are washed again, and I am used willfully and decisively. It is no accident that brings you here, brothers, no mere coincidence. The struggles of our lives are twisted and intertwined, crashing down together here and now. I am Joseph, I scream to you. I cry out after years, and my journey finally leads to this understanding. I am Joseph, I say, as the salt of the ocean streams down my face. I am Joseph, given a new name in this foreign land. I am Joseph, and I ask the only question that my heart, now broken, can even consider. The only question that matters. Is my father still alive? Thank you. So I'm not going to read every poem here, so we're going to, be jumping. Obviously, that was, Joseph and the time of Joseph and his brothers who sold him to slavery and all that happened with him. And then, as we all know, what happened after that? The Israelites found themselves in slavery for 400 years. That is a long time, 400 years. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, this God appears, the God of their ancestors, and is doing all kinds of miraculous and terrible things. You have the 10 plagues that are happening. They're seeing all that is occurring to their neighbors and sometimes even a little bit to themselves. They are leaving and waters of a sea part and they can go through, and then the waters crash over an entire army. They are led and led and led in the desert till they get to Sinai. And there they are at the base of Mount Sinai. They go to sleep, and in the morning, the mountain is on fire. There are letters in the air that they can see in the smoke, and there's wild beasts in there that they see in the smoke. Their senses are all confused. They're hearing lightning. They're seeing thunder. And they're asked if they agree to some rules that this God says. A lot is talked about how the Israelites said, yes, whatever you say, we'll do it. Whatever you say, we'll do it. This is my response to that. It's called They Broken Down. They broken down, fearful and weathered, distrusting, They, broken down, fearful and weathered, distrusting as their children's fingerprints still mark the bricks they left behind. They, not understanding these new ways, this new God, like their previous masters, though more mighty and unknown. They cannot handle the power. The words pierce their ears, their eyes, confuse senses like birds with a shift in the earth's magnetic fields, unexplained. They receive and they say yes. Of course they say yes. Because truly, what else would they say? What else would they dare say? Thank you. It was quite a journey writing these poems. I want to tell you a little secret, though. I do want to tell you a little secret. I don't know why I feel like telling you this, but I do as I'm searching for the next one. Sometimes, I would read the Torah portion, and I would really sit with it for a week, and such like that. And I would receive the poem, and I would write it, and I would take time, and I would edit it, and, I would do that. Other times, Sarah and Gabriel might be like, hey, Dad, have you, written your poem yet? We want to hear it. And it would be like an hour before class. And I'd be like, hold on a second, as I'm reading like the last words, of the Torah portion quickly, like leave me alone for a second as I'm typing the poem up real quick. Sometimes it took a while. Sometimes a poem came like that. I'm not saying this is one of those or not. I'm just remembering that experience. This is called When an Ox Has Gored Before. When an ox has gored before, there is God waiting, for we know what the ox is capable of. And there is God teaching us that this too is sacred, for it is community and responsibility and powerful love. The strongest of bonds that hold a people together even when trust has waned. For the code is given as a divine mercy, so that humans need not obsess nor disqualify another by changing the law at will. So the particulars of who pays what now can be seen if one looks right to the east when the sun begins to rise as a love letter from the one who gifted the thousands of stars in the night sky to a people broken by the load on their back, the memories of the stain of blood upon the weeping ground. Thank you. It's so good to see you all here. So good to see you all here. So, Moses is up on Sinai, receiving all the laws from God, from Hashem. And the people down below, they get a little nervous. Has everyone heard of the golden calf, right? People get a little nervous. They build a golden calf and they dance around it, and all kinds of terrible things happen because of that. A lot of people die. As an aside, one thing that's kind of interesting, there's a teaching, which I particularly like, is that, sometimes we think about, or at least I did, like growing up, that the golden calf was this enormous gold calf. But there's a teaching that's like, it wasn't. All they did was take out like the gold of like earrings and nose rings and melt it down. There wasn't a ton of gold that went into this, and it was like this little tiny calf that all these people are dancing around. I like it. It makes it a little more humiliating. And afterwards, Moses came down. God was angry. Moses was angry. A lot of people died because of that. And then they were given an opportunity to kind of make amends by giving of things they have to build the tabernacle. All right? The tabernacle is like everyone know what that is. It's kind of like the portable mishkan, the portable kind of sacred temple that was in the desert. This is called in the giving. They say the people danced around their baby cow, their little god of gold. Aaron made it. We all saw him do it. No, I didn't, Aaron said, or none of you are innocent. None of us are innocent. So when the call came, it was time to give of something of our own, magnificent, something sanctioned, ordered by the divine. It was a celebration of penance to make up and make beautiful. So we gave. The goat gave of its hair, the dolphin of its skin. We didn't regard the animals and trees. We offered all we had, the last we had, obsessed with giving. And in the giving, some of us remembered how to love again. And in the giving, some of us forgot how to dance. Thank you. As we go on, you might start to hear a little bit within these stories about my own wrestling with the stories, my own questions that I have, not necessarily answers, but my own trying to make sense, trying to make meaning when I don't always agree with what I'm reading. But there was a brilliant poet named Jessica Jacobs who talked about how as a people, because this is our sacred text, if something is difficult in it, we're not allowed to throw it away. It's our job to wrestle with it and make meaning and try and find a teaching within it, even if we vehemently disagree. Let's see. Yeah. And in the stories, when they were in the desert, as they were wandering, God went with them either during the day as a pillar of cloud which was kind of a gracious thing. You can think in the desert it's probably pretty hot, and it might kind of give them a little shade. I don't know, that's how I think about it. And at night, like a pillar of fire to keep away, those who might do them harm. And it went away for a while after the incident of the golden calf, and then it came back. Gazing at night upon that bright flame brings fear, yes, but a fear I can trust. And so it brings a peace to aid my weariness. For these days are long and hard, and it feels like yesterday, months really, an eternity has passed, but who knows what time is or what time it is. It feels like another life. My soul hurts. I am proud, excited, yet my soul feels contorted and broken. I danced around that calf. For when Moses left, I could only guess if it was forever. Time had lost all meaning. I danced, but my life was spared. Some days I don't know right from wrong. Yet there is hope on the horizon. It seems we are moving toward some place, toward some land that I don't even know how to long for. But the fire in the cloud has returned. I can see it as a guide I can surrender to, trust like a mother or a father in my generation. Thank you. So there's a lot of seriousness in these poems, right? I mean, it's heavy, it's weighty, there's seriousness. And, I took it seriously. But one day, I just had enough of the seriousness. I wanted to play, I wanted to have fun, and there's all these, just like, it can be interesting, it could be really exciting, but it's also kind of dry. Just a list of rules and ways that you can kind of be forgiven if you do this or you do that, and then there's this rule and that rule and all these things. And so I wrote a TV commercial for forgiveness in honor of God. Do you have guilt, blame, or shame? Burn a cow, it's the name of the game. Oh no, you made a mistake? All you got to do is burn a flat cake. God loves a dash of salt. Just don't put in any honey or malt. The priest in his robes looks so fancy and clean, but a little blood on his ear, you know what I mean? Is your lamb feeling a bit sick? Don't bring it to the altar. God will see through that trick. In the end, if you lie or steal, burn a ram to keep it real and return to the owner with an extra 1/5. Wait and watch. God will forgive. Thank you. You gotta have a little fun, right? You gotta have a little fun. So, I'll just read this one. It doesn't need an introduction. Today, the oil. The last of the oil drips, baby green spinach anointed, the preciousness of those final drops, a virtually empty bottle. How many olives pressed, given of the sun and the soil, the rain and the wind, in each passage over the lip toward the bowl. Don't dream too much. Notice the richness. Taste the spice. There is flavor in the scarcity. Delight in it. Yet a new bottle awaits. Cracked open, the sound of the lid popping. It is used, flowing, abundant, not drips, but pours, coating. Preciousness and abundance like Moses coating the tabernacle, Aaron's head, preparing for the priesthood. We consecrate a sacred meal. Spinach and basil, sun-baked tomatoes, delicate nasturtium seeds, served with love and blessing. we too believed this could last forever. Thank you. So, one of the difficult stories in the Torah is one that books and books and books have been written about and sermons have been given about. So, when the tabernacle, when the sacred space is finally being sanctified, when it is finally being utilized, the ritual to start this whole thing has begun. There's a tent, which is where God is dwelling in. And there's an altar, some feet in front of that. And they put sacrifice on the altar. They make sacrifice, and this flame shoots out and consumes the sacrifice. And we know God is there. We know that the gates have been open, right? The energies are present, and they're powerful. But a strange thing happens right after that. Aaron's two sons walk up to that altar, and it says they offer foreign fire. We don't know what foreign fire is. We don't know what this means. But foreign fire was offered. The idea that this wasn't sanctioned, this wasn't part of the ritual. And they're standing there, and fire shoots out and consumes them. Right in the middle of the ritual. And they're dead. And Aaron is silent. And Moses says, basically, you cannot grieve now. Like, we need to continue this thing. And a lot of people have a hard time with this story. I have a very hard time with this story. And when I think about it, it depends on the day. I have a different feeling about it. But this poem is what came from me reading this portion. Sometimes things are just how they are. Sometimes things are just how they are. A tree grows from an acorn. A fly lands on a half-eaten apple. Fire consumes. Grief, the feeling of loss, is a celebration of life. But sometimes there is no time to grieve, for the tenuousness of life is still on the line. This may infuriate, but it is a cause and effect, no different than an arrow shot in the air. The need to land is not personal. The need to land just is. So if things are not prescribed at the greatest of heights, when the doorway is open, a God who has just consumed flesh will continue to consume. The ritual cannot stop, however. The energies are invoked, and until they are contained, a danger speaks out the words unsaid, spoken by Aaron in his silence, that this is real. No doubt can be afforded, nor any seriousness ignored. Discernment with eyes unburdened by anything other than the dedicated task of seeing this through to the most awesome and the most difficult end. Thank you. How y'all doing? Are you doing all right? Yeah? You want to hear some more? Are we good? Are we good? This is a lot of poetry. There's a lot of words happening here, and but I'm having a good time. I'm loving sharing this with you. I'll say that again and again because it's true. During the Yom Kippur ritual, there's an interesting moment. You all know the phrase scapegoat, right? Like when someone's a scapegoat, you put blame on a person for, society sins or whatever. That comes from the Torah, and it comes from the Yom Kippur ritual. What they did in the Torah, what Aaron did, and then what was done during the temple days. And one of the things as part of that was there was a pure white goat that the sins of the Israelites were put on, and then it was sent off to the wilderness for Azazel. It's a curious thing. This is also something we don't know about. We don't know who or what or where Azazel is. We don't know if it's a who or a what or a where. A lot of people have ideas. We don't know if it's like an old god, if it's a place, if it's, we don't know. What we do know is that a goat was sent off to Azazel. Off to the wilderness for Azazel. When no one knows who or what Azazel is anymore, we are lost in time, in relations with the earth. Old words not valued, old ideas not taught. How do relationships even exist? Azazel, we stumble even at your existence. Do you locate like Jerusalem, a place, a sanctuary, the edge of a raging cliff? Are you an old god, a demon, breathing the earth's dreaming? What knowledge is held within you? Tell me about rituals in the wild, about long hair and horns. What do you do with a goat offered in your name? Azazel, I assume you know the worst. That in our search for Hashem, for God, for Hashem, we betrayed the earth, the holy ground. Curiosity can soften the heart of a question. Over a conversation, sitting at the kitchen table, the smell of freshly peeled oranges, the young student observes, there are more curses than blessings. She asks, why is that? And I have no good answer. I do, however, invite the question to sit between us for a spell, to take up space and join us for tea and orange slices. We ask it other questions, hoping to get to know it better. What fears do you carry of your own? What loves are you longing for? If you could lay down your burdens, how might you spend your time? It was a good conversation all around, and the sunlight slowly faded. It was time to prepare dinner and say goodbye. The young student thanked me, saying, "That was an interesting thing, learning how curiosity can soften the heart of a question, and even the holiest of books carry burdens we may never understand." I wiped my hands on a towel and thought, maybe we aren't being cursed after all, just a recording of a world hurt by its own creation. Thank you. I'm gonna skip that. We're gonna. Miriam. And where she had once answered, there was silence. Miriam, they cried. It was Rosh Chodesh, and the women were the first to realize the loss of their prophetess, their teacher. Worry filled their hearts. They knew their destiny. They had seen the death amongst their kin. Yet this was different. It was Miriam. It made their fate more real. Miriam, dancer, protector, water diviner, keeper of the ancient stories. Miriam, We are without you, and we are scared. So, there's a moment where Moses understands he is leading all of these people to the Holy Land, and he's not allowed to enter. And he's done all this guiding 40 years, and he can't enter. And when they were really close, Moses basically retells them their story. But this is a piece from his voice that I think he was feeling. The unspoken song. A holy pain threatens to rip my chest. I address you, the masses, the so-called chosen ones, and it is with an imploring voice, for my own fate is hard to accept. It is not about me anymore, nor was it ever. But now truly you can see that it is about you and God. You are about to enter a place that was never meant for me. I was used, and I accept that. In fact, I even revel in it because I thought my reward would be the land, to touch the earth that Jacob touched. Yaakov, he wrestled and was rewarded. Abraham, he journeyed and obeyed and was rewarded. And what is my reward? I am Moses, the great leader, written about for ages. Yet for me, it was never about my own posterity. It was the land that called to me. She whispered to me in my dreams. I could still see her upon my waking. But my vision is clear now. From up here, on top of the summit, the directions tell me the story of our past and our future. I was used, but you need to see that I am not your God, nor your hero. I am Moses, only Moses, the one drawn from water to help you in the desert, the one to hold you and support you in the in-between place, the mezuzah, the mandorla, the threshold, the journey of 10,000 steps, bringing you to this boundary to see your destiny. Were I to enter with you, it would be about me. You would make me king, and in doing so, you would never know yourself. See that destiny flourish. I was never meant to enter. This was the plan from the start. I can see it more clearly now. The pain does not lessen by knowing this, but there is poetry and song in it, a dirge that moves the heart and shakes the soul. Knowing this too gives an urgency. My brother and sister are dead, as are many of your beloved. My time is up. So heed these words. Shema, listen, behold, remember, and learn to speak with the holy divine, a fire that can quench any thirst. But to myself, my own song sings. To touch the land would have been nice, though. To just touch the land. I'm just going to do a couple more, and then we'll be done. No. Actually, you know what? Yeah. We're nearing the end. And when Moses is singing to the people, Well, there's a lot in there about what happens if you do or you don't obey the laws. And the people haven't been very good at obeying the laws over these 40 years thus far. There's been a lot of pain and a lot of heartbreak, both from the people, from Moses as the leadership, but also from God. This one's called, It Makes Me Wonder and Question Thus. Yellow edge leaves the first of autumn, a school bus driving by, covered with early morning condensation. How do you think of yourself when great change is coming? What is your composure? The teachers say to take extra time and gentleness, though it is not advice easily taken. Rather, transitions bring great emotions amongst humans and amongst God. For in the beginning there was an idea to create, and full of awesome power, a new world was born. The relationship with individuals was something to behold. Noah, Abraham, Jacob, Moses, there seemed to be true regard, even love. But oaths were made, and oaths are powerful things. To never destroy the world again, to watch over the descendants, to make them as numerous as the stars, the promises of land. Now, however, on the eve of fulfillment, questions burn, asked without pity but in stark relief, for final messages speak truth. And in the last, before we enter the new land, God throws forth fierce words rendered within a poem to be remembered. It makes me wonder and question thus, does God even like us? And does God regret the oaths once made? I'm questioning, right? I'm questioning. This is going to be the last poem of the evening. Sorry, I'm thinking of my father-in-law. All right. Anyway, oh, it's good. He's just sitting there. He's just sitting there. Here's the context. This is the very last poem written about the very last parsha, the very last Torah portion. And I'm going to give away the ending. Moses dies. I know, sorry. If you haven't read the book, too bad. Now you know the ending. I ruined it for you. Moses dies. And before I read this, I want to introduce two people. So in the dedication of this book, it's dedicated to my beautiful family, of course, and obviously. But it also has this dedication under the dedication to them. It is also dedicated to a great teacher, Rabbi Aryeh Hirschfield of blessed memory. Without him, I may never have found my way back to Judaism. So I wanted to introduce you to my teacher, Aryeh, who died a number of years ago. He was a dear teacher to me, a very important teacher at a very important time in my life. I also want to introduce you to another teacher of mine. I just want to invoke his name, Daniel Deerdorf. He was my teacher in storytelling when I lived up in Port Townsend, and I studied with him for 7 years. And I mean, a real mentorship, a real apprenticeship. I mean, I was in community with him. He was my teacher, and he taught me storytelling, but he also taught me really how to be an adult, how to grow up and be an adult. So as I read this poem, I wanted you to hold them and to introduce them to you. This is called When a Teacher Dies. When a teacher dies, birds fly askew, temples sink, and poets pause. Out in the wilderness, the mountaintops moan, the goats sigh, and the Douglas firs mourn as if he were one of their own. Sentimentality has no place. It has no place. No words can console, nor should they. I think of Danny and Aryeh. I think of Zalman. I think of Moses. I think of their teachers and of pottery broken on the ground. The world is not perfect because it has death. The world is more perfect because it has death. We grieve, heap praise upon the dead. There is no greater honor. Black cloth ripped, our shirts ripped. The dirt upon our face becomes mud. When a teacher dies, the world stops. And then we move on, forced to be greater than we ever were. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. This has been delicious. This has been such an honor. This has been such a privilege to share these poems with you. In just a second, Leora is going to come up and close this, but I have so much gratitude from like the deepest place of my heart, the deepest place of my soul. Y'all have shaken me to my bones. And we're in the month of Elul. Can I blow the shofar? We'll see if I can do it. Sometimes it works, sometimes not. All right, we'll get there. Hold on. Ah! Thank you again. Thank you again so much. I really, really appreciate this. Oh, thank you.
I'm Leora Troper. I'm the librarian here at the Feldstein Library. And thank you so much, Brian, for sharing your beautiful, thoughtful, really thought-provoking poetry with us this evening. And so the library, we had the honor to co-sponsor this event, and I'll tell you really quickly, everybody here is welcome to use this library. It's a community resource. We have a lot of programming coming up this year in 5785. There's going to be some adult story time for adults in the winter. So if you want a cup of tea and a cozy story, why should the kids get all the story time? We're going to have pop-up author visits. We're going to have the Ben Yehuda Book Club. For those of you who are old enough to remember the old Scholastic Book Club, this is modeled on that. And a lot of other things. But right now, we're still here with Brian. We've got lovely treats for you out in the Isaac foyer, and Brian is going to be signing books, and those of you who've pre-ordered them, you can pick up your copy. I hope you'll join us out there, and thank you again, Brian.